Record. Now I think you should be able to see. Can everyone see my screen if I do this? Hang on. There we go. Can you just let me know if you can you see me and see my screen? Awesome. Yep. Good. I just always like to check. Awesome. Welcome everyone. Oh, I've got all of the messages coming through now. So we've got the power of the second day of a 48-hour fast. Yep, Jackie, I can do that. Yep, recovery from activity. How much activity? Okay, Sally. Yep, awesome, guys. And if you've got any, I will ask for questions. I will have a little bit of time, hopefully, at the end. So if there was anything that I didn't answer, I'll address it on the at the end. So hopefully, I've got enough to to address most questions. Hey Dana, hello Sally. Awesome. Oh, Sally says she can't see me, but she can see my slides. Okay. So hopefully, as long as you can see the slides, whether you can see me or not, that's not that important. Okay. Kathy, you've got a question? Yep, I will try and answer at the end. Perfect, guys. Okay. Jillian, awesome confirmation. You can see. Thanks, guys. All right. So guys, just before we get started, I just want to acknowledge just a few things. Number one is thank you to everyone for making time to jump on the webinar, especially if you're tuning in live. I know it's gonna, I just keep seeing the numbers of people joining, and I'm just so grateful for your time, and also just for your commitment to making sure that you really understand the science, particularly on this topic around intermittent fasting. It had some airtime in across sort of 2013, 2014, and but I really want to kind of delve into where the science is at the moment, and kind of take a little bit of a walk through, where we've come from, what's going on, and where we're at right now. I also, for those of you who may have been dragged onto this webinar because a friend invited you, I just want to say thank you because I know it can be hard to trust a friend, or just jump on and listen to a random person that you may not know about. So a little bit about me. So my name's Danica Tanya, and I have been a qualified dietitian and sports dietitian for the last 10 years. And up until about 3 years ago, I was doing a lot of things. I was in sort of working with lots of different sporting teams and athletes of all different ranges, but I was also spending a lot of time in private practice, and I wanted to, and I was seeing a lot of people with, who wanted to, shift some weight, whether it was a few kilos or several kilos. I saw a lot of people who wanted to get their gut health under control. I saw a lot of people who wanted to feel better, have more energy, and I really felt like I was only 50% effective at the best of times. And so I felt like I was missing something. And I really think over the next couple of weeks, you're going to hear from me, and there'll be a couple of other episodes that'll be open webinars. So I hope you can tune in for that. But one of the missing pieces for me in my clinical practice was this concept of intermittent fasting. And we're going to go through some of the health benefits, why, what's the science saying. My background is as a dietitian, but I really pride myself on my ability to have an open mind and to look at different realms of nutrition and different practices and different scopes with a very open mind. And I think that I get really frustrated, and I'm going to be really honest with you. I get really frustrated when I hear whether it's podcasts or whether it's whatever kind of broadcasting media where dietitians and certain health professionals can be very one-eyed. And I'm really trying to make a stand on that and change that so that we have more holistic, integrative approaches to nutrition. So that's a little bit about me. Some of you may be loving a system of nutritional superfoods, and we won't be specifically talking about them tonight. If you are watching this, make sure you go back to the person that recommended you or suggested for you to watch this webinar, and ask them to give you some more of the details. But I'm really going to concentrate on the science. I'm going to talk a little bit about what some of the studies, and really talk about some of the evidence that's going on. So just bear that in mind. Okay, so let's move on. So hang on a second. Can't see my slides very well. I'll come back to that. So on the menu tonight, so no pun intended. So we're going to talk about what actually constitutes an intermittent fast. What are the health benefits associated? So, and it's not just about weight loss. We're going to talk a little bit about how intermittent fasting can stimulate the detoxification process in the body and how it does that. We're going to also look at some of the criticism around fasting and some of the gaps in the current research. And there's a few other things that you should know about intermittent fasting and how to include it into your daily routine. So let's look at intermittent fasting. Let's look at the different protocols. So there are, for those of you who've kind of been a little bit interested on the subject, or you might have read a little bit, you'll notice that there can be some different protocols. So you may see a 24-hour fast, you may see a 48-hour fast, or in some cases we call that a 2-day fast. There may be a 40-hour fast. Definitely there's a couple of different protocols where there's specific times in the day where you fast. So one of these methods was called the 10-14 method. So it would literally be you would eat during a 10-hour period and fast or abstain from food for the other 14 hours, most of which you were sleeping. And then there's others which are can be more restrictive. So it's more like eating between 12 and 7 p.m. So it's quite so it's like more like a 7 and whatever the rest is. I can't do maths on the spot, but there can be really different protocols. So there's also alternate day fasts, and the difference with those is that, and just so we can clarify and get some definitions happening, but we see alternate day fast being a reduction every other day in calories by between 20 to 40% in calories every day. So, every other day. So that is some of the, I think this is one of the gaps in the literature, that there's lots of different regimes and lots of different protocols. So we're going to discuss sort of what, like what's working and what we can see going through the different studies. There's also, just to clarify, there's also that periodic fasting. So there's which is more in a religious sense. So it could last for several days to several weeks. So such is the case with something like Ramadan. But I'm actually going to go through, let's actually have a look. I think it's the next slide that looks at, so the history of fasting. So I'm on track. So for centuries, intermittent fasting has been practiced by ancient cultures and lots of different religious beliefs. And I'm just going to list a couple of them that are still practiced in modern day times. So let's have a look at the Muslim faith. So I mentioned Ramadan just before. So that's fasting between sunrise and sundown for the whole month in the 9th month of the Muslim calendar. And some also fast every Monday or every Thursday, depending on what practice you're following. And so that's something that is very religious, and it's something that's really ingrained in that Muslim faith. Buddhist monks regularly fast, so they abstain from all food and drink for about 24 hours to clear the mind. That's their words. There is Hindu faith, so there's a 24-hour fast on new moon days to cleanse the body and purify the system. And here's the thing. So enhance concentration during meditation. So we've got, Buddhist monks who are doing this to clear the mind. We've got, the Muslim faith, which is like clearing the soul and a bit of a sacrifice. And then we've got Hindu faith, which is enhancing concentration during meditation. And this is really important. We're actually going to talk about some of the science behind these claims, and that there may be some merit to them. Jewish faith. You may or may not have heard of Yom Kippur. It's probably the most well known fast. So it's called the Day of Atonement. And obviously, there's other fasting days in the Jewish faith throughout the year. But I feel like that's probably the one that most people would go, oh yeah, I've heard of that. There's also in Mormon faith, so the first Sunday of every month, families will actually skip 1 or 2 meals and donate the money to charity or to those in need. So that's more of a sacrificial type of a practice. And then we had the pagan faith, which paganism really fascinates me. But some choose to fast before the spring equinox, and that was to, again, this is a direct quote, cleanse the body of heavy winter foods, intended to purify the body energetically, and is often used to raise vibration levels for magic to occur. And that is a direct quote from pagan practices. So let's get right into it, because I feel like that's actually, before I jump into that, I just want to jump in, because sometimes I have to. Perfect. Now, guys, if I miss your question, I'm going to be really sorry. We've got a really full webinar, so there may be every chance that I miss it, but I will try and answer as many as I can. Can I just get a bit of a shout out? Is that interesting? Did you guys know about any of the religious type of fasting? Did you know that it's been used in centuries? Judy's loving it. Awesome. You're welcome, Judy. Yep. Awesome. Okay, Ashley, yep, you knew about it. Yep. Oh, cool, Jackie. I'm glad. Yep. Oh, Caroline, I didn't know that. That's awesome. Cool. Yep. Awesome. Thanks, guys. Awesome. Awesome. Everyone. Oh, good. Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. Cool. All right, guys. Perfect. I always just like to know that I'm on track. So thank you for all your feedback and for talking to me, because it's really hard to just stare at a screen and and be entertaining. So thank you, guys. So let's have a look. So, oops, we've gone back too far. There we go. So let's look at the health benefits. Now, I promised to look at the health benefits. So now one of the obvious outcomes for that most people will take on maybe a 24-hour or 48-hour fast, or this was publicized a lot by the advent of the 5-2 diet, for those that may have heard of it. So it was the 5-2 diet looked at. So it was basically eat normally for the 5 days of the week, and then restrict your calories to 500 calories for if you're a female and 600 calories if you're a male. And that was really touted as being able to reset your body and basically accelerate some of your weight loss results. Now, there's been several studies, and I'm just picking on a couple just to show you, but there was a 2012 study completed by a team of researchers at the University of Illinois in Chicago, and it was led by Krista Varady, or Varady, I'm not sure how to pronounce her surname. But basically, they looked at 54 obese women to either and it was an intermittent fasting, calorie-restricted diet with liquid. So these were shakes, as replacing 2 out of the 3 meals. And they also compared against intermittent fasting with calorie restriction as with a food-based diet. So these guys were just seeing a dietitian. Sorry, I shouldn't say just, they were seeing a dietitian. And the trial had 2 phases. So they had a 2-week weight maintenance period, so to kind of as a bit of a flush or a stabilizing phase, and then they had an 8-week weight loss period. And here's what they found. So they found that, I'm just going to interpret this graph for you because I have this condition called graphlexia, so it's like just trouble explaining graphs, but I'm gonna give it my best. I found this was the best way to kind of communicate the results, and they showed that body weight, the amount of body weight that was lost with the guys that were doing the intermittent fasting combined with using 2 shakes a day it was significantly, they lost significantly more body weight, and they also lost significantly, that's what these little asterisks are for, they also lost significantly more fat mass that was lost. And so the differences were also clear and very significant between the visceral fat loss. So I just wanted to show you this because I think it's really important that, yes, even though, so intermittent fasting had incredible benefits, and both groups lost weight, they lost fat mass, and they also lost, visceral fat, and also subcutaneous abdominal fat. That's what SAT stands for. But the difference was that it wasn't just the intermittent fasting; it was the nutrition support that they were doing during the program, or that 8 weeks of being studied. So I just thought that was really interesting. And then the other thing that we saw was there were some cardiovascular benefits that were observed in this study. So we saw total cholesterol decrease quite significantly, with LDL, so the bad cholesterol, dropping as well quite significantly, with good nutrition support combined with intermittent fasting. So I just wanted to make that point that and this was some of the criticism with some of the like the 5 and 2 diet, that it was touted, and there was kind of insinuated that you could go and eat McDonald's, or you could go and eat whatever junk food you wanted for those 5 days, but then as long as you hit the reset button and you fasted for 2 days, all was fine. It doesn't work like that. You really do need to be really conscious of the nutrition choices that you're making 7 days in the week. But I just wanted to highlight that there's been some pretty cool studies that have really looked at when you combine good nutrition support with intermittent fasting, that it can be really, really really beneficial. And I just wanted to show you as well, I love seeing this photo, but this is really to show you the differences between visceral fat before the program, and then the visceral fat. You can see all that kind of white gray stuff has really reduced, and that's all the fat that's surrounding our key organs, and that's the stuff that's really dangerous and contributes to things like rising cholesterol levels, high LDL cholesterol levels, high triglycerides, etc. So you can see all of those have come down. Oops, there we go. So let's look at, this is another sort of phenomenon. So improved insulin sensitivity is another health benefit that comes from intermittent fasting. And so just to go back a step, just to make sure our physiology knowledge is up there. So we know that insulin ushers glucose into cells. So it takes it from the bloodstream into cells where it can be used for energy. And insulin resistance is the term that's used to describe a pre-diabetic state where cells basically don't respond to glucose literally knocking at the door. And so what happens is, it means that your pancreatic beta cells that produce insulin have to work overtime to produce more and more insulin, because small amounts are not effective. And over time, this can lead to type 2 diabetes, as obviously those beta cells become worn out. So now this is where I'm really fascinated. And again, guys, as you can see, there's references on the bottom of every slide, and everything that I'm claiming in this presentation is absolutely backed by science. I'm not plucking facts out of thin air. So intermittent fasting may have a role in resetting insulin resistance or improving insulin sensitivity. One study showed that healthy men who fasted for 20 hours every other day for 15 days had improved glucose uptake, which means that insulin had become more effective and their blood glucose levels were better controlled. So what this is basically saying now, of course, like I said, can you see how there's lots of different protocols? And, in the study, I should have mentioned the previous study that I talked about, they did a 6 days of regular eating, so non-fasting days, and a 1 day or a 24-hour fast. That was the study protocol. This one's obviously alternate day fasting, so it's a little different. But I just really, the fact that we can improve our insulin sensitivity and the way that our body and our glucose control, just by reducing our calories for, say, maybe it's 1 day in the week, or it may be, every second day you have slightly less calories. I think that's really phenomenal. So guys, I might stop and pause for a breath, but is this interesting? Is this good? Is this something that you are, Yes, awesome. I got one. Yes. That's really good. Ashley's learning heaps. Awesome. Cool, cool. But looks like there's like a delay. So if I'm like hanging out, just like waiting for your reply. Awesome. Cool. Thanks, guys. Awesome. All right, Julian, I'm not sure why you can't see the slides, but hopefully we'll it looks like it's showing me on my end that it's okay. So we are recording this. So if you miss anything, we can, yeah, this is being recorded. So perfect. Dana says, amazing. This is exactly what I've been wanting to learn. Oh, that's awesome, Dana. Thanks, guys. Yep. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Oh, Naomi, I know insulin resistance is just it's just one of those things that it is really hard to understand, and we're only just starting to know the half of it. Actually, just really interestingly, just on insulin sensitivity, there's also some interesting research coming out around different microbes and different types of gut flora having an impact on our glucose sensitivity and insulin sensitivity, and of course appetite controls and all of that. So more on that coming out later. But let's move on. I'll stick to my point. So sorry for the very angry looking photo there of a girl shoving her face, but I just wanted to prove a point that a lot of people think that when you maybe fast for 24 or 48 hours, that you're likely to maybe binge or gorge on foods the next day. That's actually been proven wrong in the scientific evidence, because when intermittent fasting becomes a habit, less food is eaten during those non-cleansing or non-intermittent fasting type of days. So theory number one is that the stomach shrinks on fasting days and therefore unable to fill to the same extent on non-fasting days. And theory number two is that over time, hormones that control satiety, or that feeling of fullness, so things like leptin and insulin, are more likely to work more effectively due to improved leptin and insulin sensitivity. So I just find I think that's really cool. So maybe the first, if you're doing it for the first time, you may need to choose sort of more filling food, especially that day after you've come off a 24-hour or 48-hour fast. But you want to make sure that, so you're going to have things like boiled eggs and higher protein foods, higher fat foods, so things like coconut-based foods that are really going to help to keep you fuller for longer, especially if you're new to the practice. I really, really love this stuff. So, you know how has anyone ever experienced the feeling? Actually, I might just go to the audience here again, and I'd love to find out, for anyone who has had experience in maybe a 24-hour or 48-hour fast, who has experienced this kind of feeling, whether it's mental clarity or this lift in mental fog, or maybe it's just feeling like you can concentrate better. But yep, getting lots of yes. Oh, yep, lots of yeses. Cool. Okay. Yep. Yeah. Awesome, Judy. So on day one, that's really good. Yeah. Okay. So getting lots of yeses. Okay. Definitely. And I've got to say that, yeah, absolutely, Maxine. Yep. It's like a bright and light at the day after. Absolutely. So there's actually I love understanding the science behind why this is. Yep, faces crazy energy, high spirits, the clarity. Yep, yeah, we have some raving fans. Yep, Naomi. Yep, you function so much better on cleanse days. Yep, we've got some people saying that they're actually doing a cleanse or a fast today. That's awesome. Yeah, yep. Increased hearing sensitivity. That's really interesting, Joe. I'd never heard of that one. Yep, awesome. We've got Jackie's husband fasts on exam days. He says it does wonders for his focus. Absolutely. Well, let's talk about why that is. So again, some very early research, But I think this is really promising for the future of brain health. So early research in animal studies is revealing that short periods of fasting may actually have a positive effect on brain health and mood. And we've got lots of people on the line right now who are experiencing or have experienced that. It appears that fasting may stimulate the production of what we call brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF, which reduces the degradation of brain neurons and promotes better learning and memory. It's also been shown to stimulate the growth of new brain neurons. Like, this is phenomenal. And when levels of BDNF increase, so too the levels of serotonin, which is that one of the feel-good neurotransmitters, which may help explain why this one study among aging men found that fasting improved their mood and their perceptions of quality of life. So I feel like we are really lucky in this space where we're getting to experience that mental clarity, that ability to concentrate, to focus more. And there's if you go on and read some of these full papers, Mattson, I think his name's Mark Mattson. He actually, forgive me if I've gotten his name wrong, but he is a big proponent of of different protocols of fasting, of intermittent fasting, and he's suggested that perhaps it may be because we've evolved. So this whole idea of the 3 meals a day came from a very agrarian type of an age where we had, it was very social. It probably came from the need to have breaks in farm work. So there was obvious breaks for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And you can see that happening in today's sort of industrial working age, and where those kind of meal times break the day up. But he's suggesting that in earlier times when we were in our hunter-gatherer days, we didn't have access to food 3 times a day. And so his thoughts are that we have actually, if you, let's just say you were hunting, I don't know, a deer, let's say, and you missed. And so you had to get smarter and you had to outsmart your prey to make sure that you were fed the next day. And we're going to also talk about some of the other physiological benefits of fasting. But I think the fact that we can actually protect our brain is really, really cool. So I'm just going to check in. Oh, I sound like a robot. Am I okay, guys? Can you just give me a yes if you can still hear me okay? Yes? Okay, good. Okay, maybe, Ashley, maybe it might be your internet connection because I'm getting a lot of yes, okay now. Okay, sorry guys. I've closed down all of my internet, like anything else that's running internet. So hopefully we can hang in there. Just give me a holler if I start to sound like an alien or a robot. Thanks, guys. Awesome. So, guys, actually, just while we're taking a little break here, who's learning something? Like, what have you just learned? Tell me if this is interesting. If you're learning something. Yeah. Yeah, be the deer. Well, all right, at least be the hunter who gets the deer the second day. Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, the brain stuff's amazing. Yep, lots of people. Awesome, fascinating. Always learning. Thanks, Judy. Yep, bring on the fasting. Yep, awesome. Cool. Caroline says she rather loves reminding herself of these things. Caroline's another fellow dietitian and sees eye to eye with these concepts, and I absolutely love it. And I think these are early days, but we're going to see more and more health professionals embracing the new science and basically a different way to feel better. So let's move on. Thanks everyone for your comments. Oh, sorry, there's just been another flood of awesome, Nicole. I'm glad you're enjoying it. Yep, good to see the science. Yep, it's good to have validation. Yep, absolutely. Yes, I know, Dana. I know we didn't. I didn't know that we could get new brain neurons either. I just think this is amazing. Thank you, Kylie. It's absolutely. Oh, and we have a student dietitian, Alison, on the line. I love it. I'm so glad you could join us, Alison. Well done for being one of the new dietitians to embrace the science. So well done. All right. So this is another area. Let's get back on track. So the cellular maintenance is something that I really appreciate as well. So fasting, you may or may not have heard this before, but fasting allows the body to go to work on itself. So studies demonstrate that fasting promotes a process called autophagy, which is basically the body's own internal housekeeping system where damaged cells are either discarded or repaired. It's also been, the way it's been described as well, it's like the body eating itself and clearing away any dead or dying tissue that needs to be replaced. And this process actually does slow down as we age, which is why calorie restriction and fasting can have an anti-aging effect, because it boosts that autophagy, or that cellular maintenance type of process. And it's really important to note that flooding your body with nutrition support in the form of antioxidant vitamins and botanicals is really essential in the detoxification process, because we're going to talk a little bit more about this in the coming slides. But as toxins are being released, as fat stores are used up during your whether it's cleanse days or intermittent fasting days, as that's starting to happen, you really need to have a really good nutrition support to be able to facilitate that process and allow your body to clean itself up and basically support those processes. And if I think about it like autophagy is, so for those of you science nerds or biologists on the line, you'll know that so autophagy, one of the cells involved in that process are your macrophages. So some of those white blood cells that go ahead, and they're like Pac-Men. So Pac-Men will go around and they'll go and destroy any tissue that needs to be cleared and needs to be replaced. And this is what intermittent fasting has been shown in the science to stimulate. So let's talk about this whole detox process, because there are a number of health professionals who still believe to this day, and look, they are sort of half right in their own right, but we have been, if you studied, maybe more than 5 years ago, I studied 10 years ago, and this was definitely the catch cry of my study time, but it was thought that your body, your liver does an incredible job, your kidneys do an incredible job of cleaning your body up, so why should you need to detox if it does it itself? And yes, I will preface this by saying our liver is incredible, our kidneys are incredible, but there's a couple of things to note. Number one is there are things that we can do, and there is an environment that we can create within our own body that supports and maximizes or optimizes that process, number one. Number two, if you are making poor dietary choices on a day-to-day basis and a long-term basis, then you're not going to have the nutrition required to optimize that detoxification process. Number three, we live in a really dirty, toxic world where we have something like 80,000 different chemicals that we don't even know. We've only tested about 300 of them. We don't actually know what impact they have on our body, and they come from plastics and perfumes and personal care products and pesticides and herbicides and things that are added to water, and just so heavy metals. There are so many sources of contaminants. We really need to help our body. We really need to be at an optimal state of detoxing our body on a regular basis. And so, sorry, that's kind of my rant. And the other thing then, reason number four, is that we live in a chronically stressed state where maybe we're not sleeping right, and poor nutrition has to compensate with that as well. We're really busy, whether it's financial stress or whatever it is, that all of those things compound our body's ability to naturally do this itself. So if there are things that we can do in our environment, so whether there are there's nutrition support, whether there is an ability for us to create an environment such as an intermittent fast to actually support that process, then why wouldn't we do that? So, sorry, rant over, but I just wanted to share that. So intermittent fasting not only aids in weight loss and fat oxidation, but it also stimulates detoxification. So when you provide an opportunity where you are primarily using up the energy that is stored and housed in body fat. So let me just rephrase that. So as you are starting to release that fat, some of those virtually all of those stored toxins are released into the circulation where they can be more easily removed from the body. So obviously they need to get into the bloodstream, because often in fat, if they're housed in fat cells, which is most often where toxins are found, because it's basically our body's secondary mechanism for protecting itself, that as they start to enter the bloodstream, we can actually do something about it. It's a bit like kind of getting it in the vacuum cleaner and then tossing out the vacuum bag. You have to actually suck it up. You have to actually get into the bloodstream, send it to the liver, send it to the kidneys, and then, flush it out. So there are certain herbs, like I said, botanicals, antioxidants, and polyphenol-rich nutrients that can increase the levels and or the efficiency of the enzymes responsible for toxin metabolism and elimination, but more on that at the end. Let's have a look at, actually, I'm just going to get a bit of a here. Who agrees with me? Who's learning something? Josie thinks I am. That's really good. Thanks, Josie. Awesome. Valerie says, yay, bring on the anti-aging. Caroline, I didn't know you studied 10 years ago. Yeah, awesome. Sally Hall, who's an incredible reproductive biologist and we're going to be doing some work together really soon. She said, I've beautifully described my PhD. Awesome. Catherine says, what are botanicals? So Catherine, the botanicals are basically plant-based ingredients that we actually don't get through food. They have to be consumed through supplement form. I'm not sure who invited you on the webinar, but if you were invited by a friend, get back to them. Otherwise, get in touch with me at the end of the webinar and I can explain it. Caroline, yes, I do understand that more health professionals would understand this. Yes, and that's why we're doing this, so that we can present the information in a very factual way to make sure that people, and especially health professionals, so guys, this will be recorded, so I do want you to share this with any health professional that you think is open to learning and would love to learn more about this process. Yeah, awesome. Cool, guys. Awesome, I love this. I love this. You missed the second rant point, Naomi. Oh, I can't even remember. My brain goes off on a tangent, but listen to the recording. We're talking, I think it was around maybe it was poor nutrition choices. So not eating enough. Anyway, I'm sure I can go back over that. Yeah. Awesome. Cool. Have missed science studies, so I'm loving science in my lounge room. I love it, Nicole. Thank you so much. All right, let's get back on track. Thanks, guys. I'm loving the feedback. So, makes me feel like I'm not alone. So let's talk about, now I found this really fascinating. So this is very, very, very early research, and things are changing. Remember, things change all the time in the science. So this is current as of the 17th of March, 2016, St. Patrick's Day. But I find this is a very, very rapidly changing area of science and nutrition science. And we're talking about looking at the healthy gut microbiome. So we're talking about levels of, healthy gut flora or healthy gut bacteria. I did a talk on this a couple of weeks ago, and we talked about some of the different things that we could do to enhance and create a healthy gut bacteria. And I've got some more stuff coming out about this pretty soon, so stay tuned. But basically, what I wanted to say is, while the science is still in its infancy, bacteria called Akkermansia, which is they're anti-inflammatory, they improve blood sugar control, and may reduce the risk of obesity and diabetes, is actually found in high levels in those who fast regularly. Now, I can't make any claims about if you are doing some sort of cleansing program. I can't make any claims about that, but there is some early research to say that this process of intermittent fasting, where it's like is creating an environment where some healthy gut microbes can thrive. Okay, so Kylie says our next info section will be the bomb. That's awesome. Yep. Yes, Sally, I will hopefully I will touch on that at the end. But I will, if I don't, I will create I'll create another presentation around that. And Jackie says, yay for Akkermansia, and good spelling too, Jackie. Well done, I'm impressed. So let's look at, now this is a very, very topical thing. So let's look at the effects of growth hormone and intermittent fasting. So this is a really interesting one. Now, I really dug deep for this one because, again, it seems to be fairly anecdotal, and I will admit that there is a bit of anecdotal evidence about, the rise in growth hormone. But there are some early studies that are showing, and not so much early, but there are a few studies. Let me say that, because there was some that went back to 1988. There was a 1992 study. I think there was like a 2002 study. So there's not. I couldn't find anything that's been done quite recently. And so the actual amounts of how this changes remain unclear at this stage. But I did find a really good study, and probably the most recent one. So this was 2002, and it was talking about how ghrelin, so the hormone that's produced when the stomach is empty. So it's also known as it's called ghrelin because it's like, you're producing it when your stomach's growling. Ghrelin stomach. That's how I remembered it anyway. But it's ghrelin may drive the secretion of growth hormone during fasting. And so that's probably the most current paper that I found on this topic. If anyone sees anything or finds anything, please alert me. But I really felt like I really dug around for this, and I couldn't really find a whole lot that was really sort of hardcore evidence. So that's a little bit on growth hormone. So in terms of, Sally, you were asking about athletes. Now, in terms of intermittent fasting, athletes, it's a very, very, very new world. And for some sports, and with athletes, it's all about timing. So we're talking about, if we are looking at an athlete, we need to look at where they are in their training spectrum. So have they just finished an event or a competition phase? That's a really good time to do a cleanse or a fast, because that's like where they are actually they're doing a lot of like cellular turnover and cellular maintenance. So I think that's a good time to do it. If they are midway and there's just not enough time to do to fit in a day or a couple of hours, then it may be more important to look at, and this is probably where you want to be working with a sports dietitian, because a sports dietitian can actually do what's called calorie cycling, which is this kind of like, some days it may be 20% above calorie requirements, some days it may be 20% below calorie requirements. So to kind of make a blanket statement, I can't actually do that, because in different sports, so things like it may be more beneficial in things like more ultra endurance type of sports, where there is more muscle wasting and more muscle damage, as opposed to high intensity, high burst, very glycogen dependent type of sports. So that's probably all I can say at this stage, because there's actually not a whole lot of, Sally says, thank you, awesome. There's actually not a whole lot of research in this area at the moment. And that's probably why we are getting some criticism from some sporting, some coaches, and some basically sports health professionals, because, there are some of us making claims that probably, aren't substantiating the evidence to this point in time. So that's a nice little lead in, the criticism and the gaps in the literature. So just to put this into perspective, and I do understand if health professionals are finding it a little bit hard to get their minds around some of this research or this knowledge. And one of the criticisms is that there's been many animal and rodent studies, but there's been fewer human studies. So some of the studies have looked at extrapolation from animal studies, and they are we're extrapolating them to human studies, or to the human model. So, but there are some really, really good human studies that are emerging, and we are seeing more and more coming to light, every month. So, that's sort of one piece of the gap. There are also, like I've mentioned before, there's lots of different protocols for intermittent fasting. So it can be hard to decipher the best protocol. And someone asked me at the start, what's the best protocol? We actually don't know. So I really think it's whatever feels best for you. If you may love doing 48-hour cleanses or fasts, that's awesome. But if you feel like maybe the second day you don't feel that great, well, maybe a 24-hour period is much better for you. Or it may even be that for you, and there's different, actually we'll talk about this, that there are intermittent fasting may be inappropriate for a couple of groups, and that's like the obvious one, which is children and adolescents who are still growing. We just don't understand the effect on them. Obviously in populations like elderly people, which are, we just, we don't know enough, and especially if they're, if they're immune compromised or on a lot of medication, we just, it's probably safer not to go there. Obviously, in people who are underweight, who don't have those fat reserves, it's a no-go zone. And also people who have disordered eating patterns or an actual eating disorder. And I say both because you can have disordered eating without the presence of an actual diagnosed eating disorder. So, if you've got a poor relationship with food, or if you don't have really great sensible eating patterns, then probably intermittent fasting, not right now, not while that relationship with food is still being established. And obviously, and probably to add to that list would be, athletes in a really elite phase of their program where they can't afford to take the time out or have the training, the downtime. It's not just the 1 day of training that they're missing out on. So if you're thinking, it's just a 24-hour fast, there's just going to be 1 day. It's going to be potentially like a few days after that, because you're going to have, there's going to be some recovery time and glycogen recovery time, and if you want to have if it's going to be effective, it really does need to be, the training needs to be manipulated the week around that. Awesome. Cool. I'm just checking some of the questions. So Claudia is asking, what's most beneficial though for weight loss, a 48-hour or a 24-hour? So Claudia, good question. I really think that, so it really depends. So all of the studies that I've looked at, they've all had a 24-hour fast as being really effective for weight loss. Now, of course, it makes sense that if you go for 48 hours, then you've got that extra, that secondary 24 hours where you've got a little bit more time to chew up, obviously some of the extra, use more of that fat as your main fuel source. So if you're looking for accelerated weight loss results, maybe a 48-hour fast is the right way to go. But if you feel, for some people, and I know I'm giving a real like yes and no answer, but I just want to present kind of like the different thoughts on this. But a 24-hour fast, once every week could be really sustainable for most people. So it's really whatever works for you. There's no right or wrong way. And there's even been some really interesting protocols where I saw where it was like a 2 days in the week, but non-consecutive. So there's some other things that you may like to play around with. Yes. Oh, yes, absolutely. Sorry, and Sally just reminded me, absolutely, and I can't believe I forgot to leave this off, but absolutely no good for pregnant women. So it is absolutely, intermittent fasting is absolutely inappropriate for pregnant women, and also potentially for those lactating as well. Thank you, Sally, for that pickup. Awesome. You're welcome, Claudia. All right, I think I've got one more slide, so we'll push on. So other things you should know. So now we've talked about a lot of the science around it. We've talked about the benefits on weight loss. We've talked about the benefits on the process of detoxing. We've talked about the process and the mechanisms behind improving our brain power and brain control. We've talked about the benefits on improving insulin sensitivity and glucose control. So lots of cool things. What you should know is that intermittent fasting does not give you an excuse to eat whatever you want, like including junk food, on non-fasting days, because we really do undo the work that we've done on that 1 or 2 day fast. So really important. And that was one of the criticisms behind the 5-2 diet, as I mentioned. So remember, now all of the studies that I looked at, especially that showed tremendous or significant differences between, fat loss and body weight loss and the retention of lean muscle. This is really important to make sure that at the same time we're not losing lean mass. We really, non-fasting days really need to include a regular source of whey protein and really good quality protein, healthy fats. So things like avocado, coconut oil, olive oil, nuts, or salmon, oily fish, those kind of things, really important. And also, they also need to contain probiotic foods. So things like, yes, yogurt's incredible, but anything that has like cultures in it. So things like cheese, things like sauerkraut, things like pickles, things like, maybe it might be a fermented type of a drink. Maybe it might be, I think it's kombucha or kombucha. I'm not even sure how to say it, but you know what I'm talking about. So really including those kind of things. And my last word is that nutritionally supported intermittent fasting is my recommendation to provide antioxidants, botanicals that support the body's own natural cleaning processes, basically, and reduce the stress or those free radicals that may be produced with fasting and toxins entering the bloodstream. Now, just on that note, like I said, I wasn't going to bias this presentation, but you definitely, for those of you who have been referred onto this webinar, onto this training module, make sure that you go get back to the person, because they can recommend basically a system of nutritional superfoods that can support that process and make sure that we are following best practices in terms of nutrition. And if you have joined this and if you've come onto this webinar and it was obviously through me, please make sure that you send me a message at the end, or whenever you're ready, get in touch with me, and I can make some recommendations based on my own basically review of what's available to you. The last thing that I wanted to say, guys, was make sure that if you do, now I just wanted to say thank you to everyone. I know I'm pretty much like at my time. I can talk about this for, forever, as you probably well know. There will be some free series appearing over the next couple of months, but I do run a training program where I'm providing basically a science update or nutrition update once a week for through my subscription. So if that's something that's interesting to you and you'd like to learn more about a whole breadth of nutrition topics, then I'd love to have you as part of the membership. So just message me at the end. And the other thing as well is that I'm doing, especially for people who, I get approached a lot for people that need help, extra help, achieving some of their health goals that may have, not quite, they're not quite there yet. I am available. We do some work in our group, but I also do work one-on-one. So if I can help or be of service to anyone, then you know where you can find me. I'm just going to spend a few minutes at the end just answering a couple of questions. Okay, good question, Tonya. Okay, so Tonya's asked, as a type 1 diabetic, I'm curious to know how fasting and increased insulin sensitivity will affect me. Does it mean decreased insulin dosages or faster acting insulin? Really good question, Tonya. And the answer is I don't know. The best way, obviously, being a type 1, you're going to be doing lots of blood glucose monitoring. You're going to be, it depends whether you're using obviously a pump or a pen injection. But if you, it's really a personal thing. So you're going to have to, and even the whole issue of whether it's an intermittent fast or a cleanse, whichever protocol you want to follow, that's going to have to be a really individually tailored thing. And if you've got a good control over your diabetes, and that's your decision to make. But I definitely suggest doing it with a health professional monitoring you and giving you some individual advice. So I hope that's helped. You're welcome, Kristen. Just saying thank you. Okay. So Anita's just said, on my non-fasting days, I'm having 2 shakes and vitamins, then eating a 600 to 800 calorie meal at dinner time. Can I have a low calorie lunch some days instead of? Yes, of course you can. Of course you can, Anita. Yeah, I would definitely say yes. Carolyn says it's been amazing. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Judy. Michelle asks, does fasting help with joint pain? Michelle, that's a really good question. From things that I've read, it does appear that intermittent fasting does exert an anti-inflammatory effect. There was one study; it was done it was an animal study, and it did look at arthritis, and it looked at sort of joint inflammation, and there were some positive benefits that were associated with it, but again, it was done in rat to mice, so I can't say if that applies to the human model. Again, sorry, I hope that makes sense. Yep, awesome. Julie says, well done. Thank you, Julie. Thanks, Mandy, you're very welcome. How do you find results of training during a fast, says Emily? I think, again, it's really individual, Emily. So, some people can, depending if you're having nutrition support, obviously, and if you're doing a cleanse, and I'm guessing that you are, then it's a really individual thing. So some people feel like they've got a lot of energy and they can go and do some moderate training. I wouldn't go and smash yourself, because that's definitely working against what your body's actually trying to do. But for other people, it's a real day of rest and relaxation. So it's really an individual thing, I would say. Thanks, Jason. Yeah. Oh, Tonya says she's done 24-hour fast and they've been great. Awesome to hear. I'm so grateful to hear that. Awesome. All right, guys. So, guys, I'm gonna call it a day. Thank you, everyone. And yes, Amy, you should definitely do that. I am so grateful for all of your time tonight, and for all of your interaction and support. This recording will be available really soon, that you can share with whoever really needs to hear this. And as I said, all I have done tonight is really just showing you what the science is saying, communicated, what is really evidence-based, and then for you to make your own judgments around what's right for you. So thanks, everyone, for your time, and we'll see you on the next open webinar. Good night, everyone.